Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. In this week's video, I want to take a look at how layering different synths and samplers can help take a basic instrument that might sound good enough on a first listen to a really nice sound with depth and interest that will really help your production sound bigger, fuller and more professional. My name's Jack, I'm a producer and mix engineer based in the UK. I specialise in working with electronic and pop music, so if you're in those genres and you'd like to work with me to get one of your tracks to the point where you're genuinely excited to release it, then you can get in touch with me at moonshiftaudio.com or down in the comments. I put out a new video every week, so please do like and subscribe, but for now let's jump into Cubase and take a look at these layers. Okay, so for our first example, I'm going to reopen the Artemas style track that I did a couple of weeks back, and we're just going to take a look at the bass because there are several layers here and they really all contribute. So the track starts with this really thinned out and distorted bass. It's basically smashed through a decapitator and an instance of trash, and we've got this really extreme filter going on. That's what it would have been like. And we kind of use that as a sort of intro to the track. We can hear that. Before it all kicks in with the other layers. And I'm just going to take a quick look at these other layers because they really do all make a difference. So we've obviously got that thinned out, filtered, kind of radio filter style bass. This is almost the same patch, playing the same notes, with this velocity work going on to give you that sort of offbeat kind of bouncing vibe. Then we've layered that with a sub bass. And the thing I really liked was throwing in this live sort of bass. Now this is a pretty cheap sounding picked bass from the sort of stock sampler that comes with Cubase, Hallion Sonic. It's got a kickstart on there pumping it, otherwise it would sound even more robotic. Let's just listen to the main bass, yeah, because I would say this one called bass is pretty much the fundamental kind of tone of the bass. Lots of bite there, lots of aggression, but it needs some sub. So we've got our sub bass. Now you could leave it like that, quite happily I reckon. Let's just hear that in the mix. Thumps along quite happily. But there's definitely more we can do. So if we bring in that intro bass. Yeah, I've got that upper mid bite going on there. Nice and raw. But when I was producing this example for the tutorial, I did just think that there was actually some low mid kind of roundness missing, which is why I ended up adding in this live bass element. So let's just hear how it sounds dropping that into the mix. Yeah, it just helps to just add a little bit more body, and you can play around EQing different layers, using different balance on the faders just to kind of get what you want. But there's absolutely a lot of value in considering the frequency spectrum. In this track in particular, there aren't very many elements, and really the bass and the drums are the only elements that are present sort of throughout. So there's room for this bass to be absolutely massive. And so listening to the basic bass with the sub and the bass, I was able to think, okay, actually we could get a bit more of the top end in there. So I brought in this thin bass, which was originally only supposed to be there in the intro, and then even more rounding out the low mids with a live bass. And altogether, it's huge. But bass isn't the only place where you can use layering. So for my second example, I'm going to look at some chords. These are for a production that I did with Tokyo-based artist Kanoko. I've actually got a full walkthrough of this production. If you want to check that out, it's in my previous videos. But in this video, I'm just going to look quickly at the synth chords, which sound like this. So this is just an instance of Diva playing some fairly hefty chords. They sound like this. You can see the notes here. There's quite a lot going on. And that's fine, right? But we can definitely get that bigger. So what I actually did in this track was I got two separate synths that sound quite similar. This is the second synth, playing the exact same notes. This is just another instance of Diva. You can hear this one's a bit phasey, a bit flangey maybe. And I panned this one to the right and the original one to the left. And so we go from this which is just one instrument, central, to this. Oh, beefy. So much width, so much more power, just from literally two very similar sounding synth patches panned hard left and hard right. Love it. Alright, so we've got our third example here, and this is from a tutorial I made quite a while back now, where I basically recreate the backing track for a Charlie XCX track, Constant Repeat. And when I was thinking about layering, my mind went back to this one because there's a really interesting sort of pluck type sound, the main sort of melodic element of the track, to be honest, and it comes in from the intro and it stays through a lot of the track, and it was a little bit challenging to recreate and it uses a lot of layers, so I thought that would be a great one to look at now. So here we go, here's the sound. So you can hear the main sound is basically built off this kind of arpeggiated style riff. You can see the notes here. And the body of the sound comes from, I'd say, this Pigments patch. And then we've got this Serum patch, which is adding just a bit of sort of high-end definition. So that's without the serum layer. Here it's just adding a little bit of extra texture there. Then we got this organ patch, which is adding more of the sort of low mid body. Yeah, just helps to fill it out a little bit. Another serum layer there. And all of these sounds go to a bus with quite a lot going on. So we can see here on the bus we've got a chorus, a shaper box, an echo boy, a reverb, well, a supermassive, a stereo enhancer and some EQ, which is thinning it all out massively. So if I was to bypass all this, this is that same group. So by putting all these plugins in, this is a sort of auto filter and shaper box to make it more plucky. Then we've got our 8th note reverb, delay, which is just thickening it all up, spacing it out, adding some depth with a supermassive, widening it a lot with a stereo enhancer, and then thinning it way out with a Pro Q3, and all of that processing is on the bus that all of these sounds go to. So what's interesting to play around with is this idea that adding all of these layers to sort of get the core tone that you want, and then throwing them to a bus and processing them all together. Perhaps if we weren't looking for such a thin sound as Charlie has in the original track, I'll just turn off that EQ. Maybe I'll just make it a bit less drastic. So if we start to strip this back, that's not a bad pluck sound. The width, the chorus, the delay, the supermassive are on the bus are all really helping to fill it out. But what happens when we start to put the layers back? A little bit of high end there, that's really subtle. But it is nice, the serum pluck. The organ now, starting to fill out nicely. The additional pluck. And you'll notice that there's automation on some of these. That serum pluck in particular is opening up. Got this guitar sound. And then a more held note organ. Such a lovely sound. And now suddenly take them all away and that pluck sounds pretty weak. So yeah, layering, playing with different elements, and then processing them all together is an excellent way to get some much more interesting, much deeper, and much more powerful sounds in your productions. That's it for this week, but please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources, and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.